Good morning and welcome to your Prague Old Town tour. My name is Jan, I'm your tour guide for today. I'm a former tour guide here in Prague and I will show you today the most beautiful city in Europe. We start right in, we start at the Malá metro station of Line A. Don't forget to fill up your water bottles here and you're good to go. Have fun in the sun. So we walked ourselves down the street here from over there, Malá metro station, to the first station where we have a nice view on the Prague skyline, you can say. Some history lesson to Prague city. Prague was found around the year 870 when the first brick stone of the Prague castle, which you can't see right now, but you will see, was laid. Fun fact to the Prague castle, it's the largest in the world with almost 70,000 square meters. Over here we have my favorite view on the city of Prague. The river over here is called Vltava in Czech and has caused much damage and trouble to the city and also the whole region of Bohemia because it has risen many times throughout the centuries. The most severe flooding was occurring in the year 2002 when the water level rose to about 6 or 7 meters above the average level as it is now. So when you look over to the Charles Bridge, you see these figures over there. Around 3 or 4 meters below these figures, this is how high the water rose. You just go back up, we have no time to waste. To the next station. We will just go around the corner to this beautiful place here with very interesting artwork in the middle. So these are the čudající postavy made by the Czech artist David Černý from 2004, and they are kind of a stage criticism, you can say. When you have a closer look on the bucket of water they piss in, then you can see that they piss in our land, our country here, which we stand in, the Czech Republic. And when you have an even closer look, you see that the left guy there, he pisses on the location where Prague is, and the right guy, he pisses there where Brno is located. In English, these two men are called the pissing sculptures, and a couple of years ago they were able to do some actual tricks with their wieners. People could send a message to a special number and then these two pissing sculptures would go on and piss their message into the water. A bummer that this is not possible anymore. The message behind that is that David Černý wants to say, hey, I just give a damn shit about any law, any rule that there is, any authority that there is that restricts me of doing what I want. So, and he encourages us, the spectators, to do the same and just piss wherever we want, do whatever we want and think whatever we want, which is a sign of democracy here in Czech Republic, that such artwork that criticizes obviously the state is allowed here in the center of the Franz Kafka Museum right over there. If you're big Kafka fans, this is definitely the place to go. The guy was born here 1883 and died in Vienna 1924 of tuberculosis. So over from the Franz Kafka Museum right here we have the narrowest street here in Prague. The narrowest point here is around 51 centimeters and today it's like a tourist attraction, you can say, but back in the days, in the Middle Ages, it had an actual use. It was called a fire gap. So imagine a fire was breaking out here in this left building. It couldn't go on to the right building that easy because of this artificial gap. So the firefighters had an easier game to fight the fire. We just went down the street here and we'll turn left with our first view, close view on the Charles Bridge over here. This here is the Čertovka, an artificial river going from one end of the Vltava to the other end, and back in the Middle Ages it was supposed to fuel 8 of these watermills you see over there, and today it's just I would say a border between the two parts here in Prague, the Malá Strana, where we have always been, and now the island Kampa, a separate city island you can call it. And on island Kampa there is a special film spot. Maybe one of you recognizes the staircase from the first Mission Impossible. I think in the beginning of the movie where Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt runs up here and sees his boss falling off the Charles Bridge over there. You might have noticed this metal line here throughout the city. This is a dam which can be put out the ground in an emergency case when the water rises so high that the water comes to here and can be stopped with this dam. Strolling through the old town of Prague, you might notice these two red and blue colored numbers next to a doorstep. Is one address not enough? So in the 18th century, the Austrians were ruling this area and they wanted to make sure who is living in which building. So they put on the conscription numbers, the red numbers, in their bureaucratic system so that they can look up the number to the house and see, okay, who's living in there? Did they pay their taxes? Are they behaving? Did we put them in prison or something else? And the blue numbers, of course, are our modern addresses. So when you look up on Google Maps, Kampa, this is the street, Kampa number 1, you will find this building. We are now in the Kampa Park, right in front of the Museum of Modern Arts. And what do I see there? These are gigantic babies. What is that? These babies here are also made by the Czech artist David Černý, who also made the pissing sculptures from over there. This is another state criticism. He wants to say, okay, we are just numbers in the systems. We all have these barcodes in our faces. We have no noses, no ears, no mouths to articulate ourselves, to orientate ourselves in the world. So we depend on the guidance of the state, more or less. And when you swift your view from here, the babies, to the left, over there, you see this line of buildings, and behind this line, you see the television tower. This is the highest building in Prague, with around 162 meters. And on this tower, you can also see the babies crawling up and down. This can be understood as a criticism of the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union, the Soviets, built this television tower. Now the babies are crawling up and down, and they are an impersonification of state criticism, so another criticism of the Soviet Union. We jump right onto an absolute classic of today's iconic spots in Prague, the Lennon Wall. The Lennon Wall got its name, of course, from the famous John Lennon, who was murdered in the year 1980. Shortly after his death, an unknown person came to this wall and painted a graffiti, a portrait of him, onto the wall. This was very much disliked, of course, by the Soviet Union, which didn't want this Western influence in the Eastern Bloc here, so it brushed it off. But the next day, another portrait appeared with more lyrics from the Beatles about love, freedom and happiness, you could say. All of this became a protest, a demonstration against the Soviet Union, and survived the Soviet Union in the end, and today is still a form of protest against climate change, against political oppression or politics in general. A fun fact about the wall is that because it's a kind of protest, on the other side, on the opposite side of the Lennon Wall, there is the French embassy. And what do we know the French for? Of course, for their revolutions, for their protests. So in the spirit of the wall, the French embassy was located because of that. From the French embassy, take 1 or 2 turns past sweet restaurants and cafes and onto one of Prague's busiest streets, leading to the Charles Bridge. Is not the first stone bridge here in Prague. Before, in the year 1172, there was the Judith Bridge. But this Judith Bridge was destroyed by another flood in the year 1342 and then rebuilt by the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire of Germanation, Charles IV, in the year 1357. From here we have a great view on this tower over there. The Petrin Tower is a replica of the original Eiffel Tower, and in the beginning, around the year 1900, it was supposed to be a 1-on-1, a 100% copy of the Eiffel Tower. But it's smaller. Why is that? They planned to build a 1-on-1 copy of the Eiffel Tower, but in the end they didn't have the sufficient amount of money. So they built a smaller version of around 60 meters and put this version on top of the Petrin Hill, which is around 318 meters high. So hill and tower combined reach over 380 meters into the sky, which is actually higher than the height of the Eiffel Tower, 330 meters. But still today it's a tourist attraction. You can go up there for like I think 10 euros, $12 around and have a great view over Prague and even beyond. Exit the Charles Bridge and have a look right over there to the Bridge Museum. And on top of the museum we can see these numbers. In the year 1357, on the 9th of July at 5:31 o'clock, the building of the Charles Bridge began. Don't be afraid, I will spare you from the tourist masses for now. We have a nice shortcut to the next station. We are now here in the midst of the Carolinum, which inherits the St. Clement's Church, the Carolinum Library, and also the National Library of the Czech Republic. There we have the Prague Library, and on the left we have the Czech Republic's National Library. In this library you can find the book tower, where all the people are now lined up to take a photo or video of it. They most certainly are not there for all the books in the library itself. Simply pass the new Mayor Hall on the right side, go down the street and turn right in front of these colorful facades, which leads you to the beautiful small square, the Malá Náměstí. From here only one turn left and you reach the famous Staroměstská náměstí, the Old Town Square. First up we have the astronomical clock. Besides the time, it shows you the positions of sun and moon, which zodiac sign is on this month, and every hour the 2 blue doors open and the 12 apostles say hello. This play isn't really worth watching. You don't have to wait like all the hundreds of tourists do to just see some figures moving for literally 20 seconds. Next up on the square is the Tin Church. Looking at the two towers, you might notice something odd. The left and the right tower, you might notice a little difference between them, because the left one is slightly smaller and thinner than the right one. And this is because they resemble Adam and Eve. Adam, the bigger one, Eve, the little smaller one. Then to the left we have the house to the stone bell, and this is the original birthplace of none other than Charles IV. And then more to the left we have this reddish white building. This is the former gymnasium of Franz Kafka. And more to the left we have the sculpture of Jan Hus. He is, or he was, the bringer of Protestantism here in Prague, here in Czech Republic, and also the fighter for the Czech language and the fighter against the oppressive Catholic Church. This is why he's still recognized as the biggest, or one of the biggest, national heroes of Czech Republic. We turn our backs to the Staroměstská náměstí, to the posh street of Prague, you can call it, with Louis Vuitton, Breitling, Roberto Coin, Dior, Gismondi, Gucci, Prada, whatever. And we will end up at the Jewish Quarter. The Jewish community has settled around the 10th century, so more or less shortly after the founding of Prague. Since then they have witnessed many pogroms, many prosecutions throughout the centuries, and today are minimized to a number of 2,000 to 3,000 Jews in the whole of Prague, which seems very minor, very little in comparison with the total amount of people living in Prague, which is 1.3 million. I would highly recommend to you taking a single tour through the Jewish Quarter, because then you can grasp the whole culture, the whole history of the Jews here in Prague. And with that, I want to end my tour through Prague. These were my favorite picks in this gorgeous city's old town. Let me know what your favorite picks are, what you can recommend, and or if you're planning to visit the city at all. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, the Jan. Mwah.